So we all know that the Vancouver Canucks are tanking. Not intentionally, but because they just suck. Because they can't win any games, because the team is constructed poorly, because they're not skilled enough, they're not good enough. And as a result, they are the worst team in the National Hockey League. And that's probably going to stay that way for a while. I don't think it's possible that the Vancouver Canucks go on a win streak so big and that the Rangers and the Blues lose out so much that this gap of 8 points will be covered and overtaken. It's unlikely, but knock on wood, anything can happen in the National Hockey League, right? But here's the thing. We all know the Vancouver Canucks are the projected first overall pick right now, and we all know that the first overall projected pick in Gavin McKenna is going to be a very good player. But what if I told you that next year there's an even better player available? And what if I told you that this player would like to play for the Canucks? Ladies and gentlemen, this is the very first dedicated video on the YouTube channel that we will be making about Landon Dupont out of Calgary, Alberta, Canada, a 16-year-old defenseman, right-handed, out of the Everett Silvertips in the WHL. Now, Dupont's name is one that if you took a transcript of every word I have ever said on this Lego Rocks 99 YouTube channel over the past few years, we've probably mentioned Landon Dupont's name in passing here and there. You know, we always talk about prospects and first overall, second overall guys every year. I have no doubt that Dupont's name has probably been muttered by myself or by some of y'all in the comments over the past few years, but this is the first time we're making a dedicated video about him, even though he is not eligible to be drafted until 2027. This is because Landon Dupont is playing in the WHL as a 16-year-old. He was granted exceptional status 2 years ago, becoming the first WHL defenseman and only the second WHL player after Bedard to receive this designation. Eligible for the WHL draft at 15, he joined Everett as a top prospect, and in this first season, at 16 years old, he'll be turning 17 by the time May rolls around, Landon Dupont has scored himself 56 points in 53 Everett Silvertips games. This is ridiculous. A 16-year-old defenseman as the number one guy available in next year's draft. He is already a point-per-game D-man in the dub. And when you take a look at defensemen in the WHL this season, Dupont is right up there. He is 8th overall. And guess what? He's only 16. Let's go over to all-time seasons in the dub, and then we'll go over to U17 and take a look at comparable names for Mr. Dupont over here. Yes, you do have some other guys that were top players. Might I remind you that Jim Benning actually was a very good NHL defenseman at the time? Let's just go from the mid-80s up until now. The only guys that really come close were Scott Niedermayer and Dan Lambert. In fact, if you take a look at Landon Dupont's point per game, he is the best guy on this list since Mr. Scott Niedermayer in 1989-1990. Dupont was able to play in the WHL at 15 years old last season. He had 60 points in 64 games over there. He was still a point-producing stud and an over-point-per-game stud in the WHL playoffs. Now he's reaching greater heights, and he is only 16. The funny part is, even though Landon Dupont is from Calgary, Alberta, Canada, this interview by the NHL and their TikTok account goes out there and shows that Dupont's favorite team as a kid was the Vancouver Canucks. Oh yes, baby. From Bedard to Celebrini to McKenna to Dupont, all these guys, they all like the Canucks. Celebrini in the stands when JT Miller scored that crazy goal against Edmonton, cheering, "Go Canucks, go! Go Canucks, go!" 2 years later, he's on San Jose. He's killing it in the National Hockey League. Landon Dupont's favorite team growing up was the Vancouver Canucks, and now Canucks fans have ample reason, even more so than before, to fully buy into whatever rebuild or tanking could exist for next season. Here's what Thomas Drance said earlier Friday evening. I'm in Everett watching Dupont versus Kamloops. He is the youngest player in a game littered with first and second round picks, including guys like Harrison Brunicki, who have already played NHL hockey and who looked good doing it. Dupont has been in complete control of the entire game. Here's another tweet by Big Head Hockey, the most points from a U16 player in the CHL since the lockout. John Tavares had 77, Connor McDavid had 66, Shane Wright had 66, and Michael Misa had 56. Landon Dupont was on pace for 74 points in the WHL at 15 last year. Now, we know he didn't finish with 74 points. He ended up with 60 on the year, so he did kind of slow down towards the second half of that season, point production-wise, in the regular season. I mean, there were a few pointless games here and there, whatever, but in the playoffs, that's when he turned it on. That's when he was way over a point per game in the postseason. And now when you take a look at the Canucks and where they could go or should go next season, even though Jim Rutherford said that the goal is the playoffs next season, right before the Dupont draft, this kind of ineptitude and messaging would get you fired in any other field. Realistically, the Canucks are going to suck next season too, despite the playoff goal, and the Canucks might get him anyways. But wow. Now this tweet is kind of cryptic, but essentially what they're saying here is, you know that interview that we had spoken about earlier yesterday on the channel? What Jim Rutherford had to say about the Canucks and their plan and whatever? This one right here, his 100% hockey interview podcast with Darren Millard and John Shannon. Even though Jim Rutherford said in the podcast, oh yeah, we could probably contend for a playoff spot next year. No, you can't. Everybody knows you can't. Everybody knows that's not what you're thinking. The Canucks are going to start selling away their veterans. If you wanted to contend next year, you would try to re-sign Kiefer Sherwood. You would have tried to re-sign all the other guys. You wouldn't be trying to shop everybody out. You wouldn't be thinking about trading away Tyler Myers. You wouldn't be open to trading away Brock Besser, Connor Garland, Jake DeBrusk, Elias Pettersson. If the goal was to make the playoffs next year, then you wouldn't be doing that. Of course, we understand that Jim Rutherford can't be honest. He can't say, oh yeah, we're going to start selling everybody, and next year we're going to be tanking again too because we want the highest draft pick next year. You can't say that if you're the president of an NHL team, especially with the Aquilinis upstairs. They're like Makima. They're always listening. So, make your bluff. Say that you want to contend for a playoff spot as soon as you can, but don't make any extreme trades or signings to bring in win-now pieces and just let the team rot for next season and beyond. Let the team get another first overall pick and get McKenna and Dupont reconnected on the same squad that they cheered for growing up. I don't know if Gavin McKenna specifically was a Canucks fan, but Celebrity and Bedard were, and Dupont goes out there and says, yes, he is also a Vancouver Canucks guy. So, with all that said, this may be the best defenseman the NHL has seen out of the WHL since Scott Niedermayer, and he will give names like Schaefer, Owen Power, Rasmus Dahlin a run for their money. This is a franchise-changing defenseman, and it turns out he likes the Canucks. Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this British Ash Roll 9, and bye.